Thanks, everyone, for coming to Agape Latte. Tonight we have Father Jack Butler here to speak with us about his new position at Boston College as Mission Ministry Vice President, as well as how he has come to serve in this role. To give everyone some background, Father Jack Butler attended Marist High School in Atlanta before going on to graduate from St. Thomas University with a dual degree in theology and philosophy. He received his master's degree in systematic theology from Providence College before entering the Society of Jesus in 1991. He later studied at Fordham University and Loyola University, Maryland, in which he received both a master's degree and PhD in pastoral counseling. Additionally, Father Jack holds an STL in spiritual theology from the former Weston Jesuit School of Theology. Prior to his current position, Father Jack served as the inaugural director of the Manresa House at BC and worked for a number of years in prison ministry. So on behalf of campus ministry and the church in the 21st century, please help me welcome Father Jack Butler.
I have no idea why you people came here tonight. 2006, so what year is it? So 4 years ago, I did an Agape Latte, and it was going to be a much better talk than this one. I talked about how I got to be a Jesuit, how I found myself being a priest. I talked about falling in love. I talked about how I made decisions to enter the Jesuits and give up on the love of my life. And tonight, I'm not going to talk about any of that. No. So it's boring tonight. Rory, don't look like you're already falling asleep. For God's sakes, give me a chance. All right. Almost 19 years ago, 6 weeks ago, 19 years ago, I entered the Society of Jesus. And I was 28 years of age. And I showed up and I had a couple of bags and I was scared out of my mind. I entered in a house where there are already 5 guys there studying to be Jesuits. And I entered with 6. And when I got there, I looked at them and I thought, these guys are weird. They're just strange. And I thought, I'm not as strange as they are. Why am I here? And I started my plan to get out. Several hours later, we had dinner. We had a big meeting. And they said, tomorrow we start to look at why you became a Jesuit. I didn't think much about it. I went to bed, didn't sleep at all the first night, tossed and turned. I'm thinking, why did I do this? Why did I do this? Why did I do this? Next day we get up, everybody's still smiling. They're all happy, I'm grumpy. Why did I do this? Why did I do this? And we did the terrible thing that you do at college, at universities, and all this. You sit in circles. Once you know you're sitting in a circle, you're screwed. You know? So they put us in a circle, and I'm like, oh, God, this is not going to be good. And so in the circle, they said, we want you to really get down into why you were a Jesuit. And the best way to do it is to do an exercise that Ignatius did. And we want you to think 20 years in the future. Now remember, this was 19 years ago. So when I was getting ready to do this talk tonight, I thought, damn, it's 20 years. And they said, now think 20 years into the future and tell us where you think you're going to be when you're a Jesuit. So we started around the circle, you know, and there were people, I'm going to teach in a high school, you know, and I'm going to be in the university, I'm going to have my doctorate. And we're going around and around, and I'm listening to all these people and all their dreams, and I'm thinking, what am I supposed to do? What do I want to do? And it gets to me, and they go, Jack, it's your turn. And I'm looking at them like I'm looking at you right now. And I go, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. And you should have seen the look on their face, like you enter the Jesuits and you don't know what you're going to do. And I go, no, I really don't know what I'm going to do. But I know for sure I'm never going to work in higher education. And they looked at me and they said, well, why? And I said, because I want to be with broken people. I want to be with struggling people. You know, the Jesuits are for the poor and the option for the poor. And I know that I became a Jesuit because I wanted to be with those on the margins. And our universities aren't on the margins. And so I know for sure I am never going to be at one of our schools. And I should have shut up there, but I didn't. I said, and plus the fact, I have always hated school. from the moment I went in grade school right on through my first master's degree. I hated it. It was a chore for me. I have dyslexia. So when you guys, you're writing and everything, it takes me 17 hours longer just to write a sentence. I spell cat, T-A-C. And you guys get it right the first time around. And so I said, I am never going to go get a doctorate, and I'm never going to be at a university. 19 years later, here I am at Boston College, and somebody had a stroke and they made me a vice president. It's like, how could they do this to me? 19 years ago, I was absolutely sure the only thing I wouldn't do would be in a university. Now, before I go on for a second, how many of you are agonizing over where you want to end up in life? Yeah. And you come to Boston College and you hear people like me say, find your deepest desire and you find God's will for you. So you all say, I'll find my deepest desire and I'll know exactly what I'm going to do. And then you go on halftime and they give you the 3 key questions. Question number 1 is, what are you good at? Question number 2 is, what does the world need? And question number 3, what gives you joy? Now, I want you to know you got the questions totally out of order, but you got the 3 questions. And so we start subtly telling you, by the time you get out of here and you get your diploma, you should know what you want to be. You should know if you want to be a doctor. You should know if you want to be a lawyer. You should know if you want to write a book. You should know if you want to be a banker. You should know what you want to be. And I'm here tonight to tell you, that is not true. Life doesn't work that way. I want you to find your deepest desire. I want you to go into your heart and see what turns you on. I want you to have something to reach for. But don't make the mistake that I did at 28, that if you get your eyes fixed on something and you say, I know I'm not going to be at a university, the reality of life is, 20 years from today, none of you are going to know where you are. Here's a secret. Life's a dance. Life's a dance. And I want you to learn how to dance. Step number 1, find your desire. And then step number 2, fall in love with people. And then step number 3, let life carry you. Let life carry you. All right, back to my story. So I make the great pronouncement, I will never be at a university. And so then they said, because we were Jesuits, so like we're all about the Bible. So they said, go to your Bible and pick a passage that you think will dictate your life to come. So now I'm never going to be in a university. I want to be with the people on the margins. I want to be with the broken. I know exactly what I want. So I go to Luke chapter 4, verse 16, and it reads, he came to Nazareth, where he had grown up, and he went according to the custom into the synagogue on the Sabbath day. He stood up to read. He was handed a scroll of the prophet Isaiah. He unrolled the scroll and found a passage where it was written, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because God has anointed me to bring glad tidings to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, and to proclaim a year of acceptance for the Lord. Rolling up the scroll, he handed it back to the attendant and sat down. And the eyes of all in the synagogue looked intently at him. And he said, today, this passage is fulfilled. So I read it. And I knew what I wanted to do in my life 19 years ago was set people free. I knew 19 years ago I wanted to give a message of hope and glad tidings to people who were down and depressed. I knew I wanted to set people free. And so I got my first assignment in the novitiate, the first 2 years. And my first assignment was at Mass General Locke Psych Ward. And I walked up in there, and my eyes were open, and I fell in love with these men and women who were suffering. They were depressed. They were schizophrenic. They were bipolar. They were lonely. Some even abandoned by their family. And I said, I found my people. People I can sit with, people I can love, people I can give words of encouragement to. I found where I can be with my God. It's in the psych ward. I was so excited. 6 months came. 6 months went. I shook the doctor's hands and the nurse's hands, and I left the psych ward. Second job in the Society of Jesus. They sent me to the prison. I loved the psych ward, but when I got to prison, first Christmas at prison, and it was a woman's prison. During Mass, we sang Silent Night, and everybody in the prison started to sob. And I said, I found my home. I'm with the broken. I'm with the marginalized. I'm with people that I want to be with because I can get meaning out of my life, and maybe I can proclaim a God of love and hope to them. And I fell in love with prison work. And it was amazing. And it was amazing. And since that day, and then that 6 months that I was in prison, since that time, for the last 19 years, I have gone to prison once a month at least. I worked full-time in prisons, but I went once a month because I love prisons. That's where I find my God. That's where I can proclaim hope. That's where I can hopefully set captives free because I found my scripture passage. They let me out of the novitiate. They sent me to Fordham. You have to study philosophy at Fordham, but us Jesuits, we also study something else. And they said, Jack, what do you want to study? And I said, I love the psych ward. I loved prison. Can I study psychology? I think I can help people. They said, sure. So I started to study psychology at Fordham, and I loved it. I learned how to sit to people and say, I hear what you're saying. Tell me more. And people would open up, and they'd take their brokenness, and they put it in my hands, and I felt so privileged. And then I got my first assignment at Fordham, and what did I have to do? I had to work with street gangs. Kids from the age starting at 8 up to 19 and 20 who did not have any family, who roamed the Bronx, who stole and did drugs, and I got to be with them. And I got to try to get them to think about other things, and I got to be their family, and I could substitute being their big brother, and I could use these new tools they were teaching me at Fordham on how to talk to people, and I loved it. I loved it. Several years later, it came time, and I got my degree from there, and they said to me, what are you going to do next? And I said, I want to go and get my doctorate. And then I thought, holy cannoli, I already said I didn't want my doctorate. What's wrong with me? I was doing the dance. All of a sudden, life just took me away. And life will take you away if you don't put yourself in a box, folks. I don't care who your professors are, and I don't care what Jesuit talks to you. You can find your desire, but you can never know precisely where you're going to be because life is a dance of turns and moves that you'll never be able to figure out, but you got to live it. And so I went to get my master's and my doctorate in Baltimore in counseling and pastoral counseling so I could get licensed to do therapy because I wanted to help people. I worked And I got especially trained for violent offenders so I could go back and work with gangs and prisons. I worked with people who were addicts and were trained how to do alcohol and drug counseling. And I felt like my life had purpose. And then they sent me on to theology, and I came back to Weston, and I still now had my new doctorate. Not really, because it took me forever to write my dissertation because I have dyslexia, and it's awful. Make sure before you do your dissertation you're bright. Don't do it like I did. Oh my God, 47 years later and I finally finished it. Anyway, so I came back to here and I started to do theology. And I was working in the prison. They let me go back to the prison. And I got these plans. I'm going to open a clinic for people on the street and gangs and people to get out of prison. I've got the plan in my head. I'm sure of it. I've been talking to my provincial. The provincial's the head Jesuit. The provincial's like the bishop of the Jesuits. And like all people in power, he would sit there and I'd be all excited. I'm going to start a clinic. And he'd say, that's a great idea. And every time he said it's a great idea, I thought, they're going to let me do it. This is great. They're going to let me do it. I get my little degree in theology, my STL. Who the hell knows what that means? I don't know, but they gave it to me. I got 3 more letters after my name. You can play Scrabble with me. And then I get a phone call. It's the provincial. He wasn't a very cheery man. Hello, Jack. I go, hi. We have an assignment for you. I thought I'm going to start a clinic. We'd like you to go back to the novitiate and teach them how to pray. Did you hear what he just said to me? I don't want to teach them how to pray. I'm all for Jesus and everything, and I love them. But I got all these degrees. I want to do something. What do you mean, teach them to pray? I don't want to teach them to pray. I say that to him. I don't want to go. He says, tough. I go. I love teaching them to pray. I love seeing them become alive. I love tapping them into their joy. But I'm still allowed to work in prison. And I'm still enjoying that. But now it's less in my life. 3 years after that, I'll never forget it. 3 years after that, 9 p.m. on a Thursday. I remember it as if it was yesterday. 9 p.m. on a Thursday. We have one phone throughout the house. It's ringing. I hear somebody answer it, and I get paged. Jack, call on line 1. Jack, call on line 1. I pick it up. Hello, Jack. I'm thinking, I want to say, I'm sorry, he's not home. But I say, hi, Bob. Jack, yes, Bob. In 2 days, I'd like you to go to Boston College and interview for a job in campus ministry. Oh! Oh! Campus ministry! I've gone to school 19 years and never stepped foot in a campus ministry office. Why are you doing this to me? Because you're young. I'm not young! You're going to go. I don't want to go. See you later. I show up for the interview. Honest to God, I wore a multicolored sweater with holes in it. I did everything but was drooling. And I walk in, hey, hi, my name's Jack. You know? They asked me, how do you feel about God? God? How do you spell that? 2 weeks later, I get a call. You're hired. I showed up, and here's where it gets amazing. Here's where God tricked me, And by not allowing myself to be put in a box, and by dancing with life, I learned a lesson about grace. You people, the ones that were here when I first got here, and the ones that have followed, you people are amazing. You people are amazing. I love prison. I love working in psych wards and people who are suffering. But I fell in love with Boston College students. Not the buildings, folks. Everybody talks about what a beautiful campus we have. And I guess it looks nice. If you notice how I dressed, I have no sort of anything like that. So I don't notice flowers or grass and buildings. They all look the same to me. I fell in love with you. I fell in love with 9,000 to 10,000 young minds who believed in things bigger than themselves. I fell in love with not innocence in the sense, honest to God, I just went through Notre Dame. I know you ain't so innocent. But a kind of innocence where you still believe life is good. I fell in love with students that I realized were brighter than I will ever hope to be, and see the world in a way that I stopped seeing it. And so for 9 years, I have been here until they said, we want you to be the VP. And I really did. I gave them 17 different names of people who would be better. I even gave them your name. And I got that same call. No, we want you. And I got depressed because I forgot life was a dance. And then I showed up for work. And I started to realize something. What's my job? Here's my job. My job is to make sure you're being inspired. My job is to make sure that you have professors like Jenny Purnell asking you, what do you really want out of life? My job is to allow the mission of the university to convince you life is good. And that even though you can turn on the TV and there's scary things out there, it's still saying to you, but it's good. You don't have to be afraid to learn. My job is to inspire you to open your minds and say, I want to learn everything. I want to learn music. I want to learn literature. I want to learn social sciences. I want to learn history. I want to learn calculus, because the more I learn, the more actualized I become. And then I started to realize even more. That my job allows me to do something I totally forgot. We're not Harvard. We're not Yale. We're not Princeton. We're not Duke. We're not Emory. All amazing schools. And you could have gone to any one of them and gotten just as good as education as here, maybe better. But at this school, built on our mission, we say learning and knowledge and being actualized is not about you becoming rich or making it or being a doctor or a lawyer or a nurse or an Indian chief or whatever. Coming to this school and getting your mind stretched and being asked to go on service trips and do perspective and do pulse and asked to do volunteer throughout the community, to spend time with the peoples of the margin so that you have to wrestle. Why did I have the privilege to get an education? And what does that mean that I have to do with it? I get to be an administrator at a school that challenges you to take the gifts and the talents you have to go out and change the world as doctors, as lawyers, as leaders of industry. I get to be at this school because Jack Butler can only go to 1 or 2 prisons a month. And we have 15,000 students that I can convince can go and bring freedom to the corners of the globe. I get to work with you amazing people who have energy and youth and idealism. And I can only see 1 or 2 or 3 people, 4 or 5 people in therapy and do my notes. But how many psychologists and social workers are in this room right now? And all of a sudden, I realized that 19 years ago, my vision was small. But God took the desire in my heart to want to help, to want to love, to want to set people free, to want to be people with the margins. And He brought me to a place where I can do it and be with you, and you can go out. And you can change the world. You can change the world. And since I've been in my job, there have been 3 things that have come to me that I will never forget. One of them you've heard me say a ton, and I'm sorry if you're going to hear it again. But folks, 1% of the people in the world right now get to go to college. 1%. 1. Of that 1%, there are many dreaming dreams of how many houses they're going to have and where they're going to live and all the trips they're going to take. And that's great. I want you to do it. But because you came to this school and because you have the heart that you have being formed at this school, go on your trips, but realize you've got to reach back and help people on the margins. For every one of you that want to go into business and be the greatest financial wizard ever known, just realize you've got to bring ethics into it and make sure people are getting their benefits and that insurance is covering everybody and that children don't go without health care. I fell in love with you guys, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. And it's the proudest thing I do. And Jesus danced me right to this place because Jack Butler was too slow, too stupid, too dyslexic to know I really wanted to be in higher ed. And so my challenge for you tonight, because Rick's only paying me for half an hour, is find your desire. Find your desire. What have you been dreaming about? What did you play when you were a little girl or a little boy? Were you a superhero? Were you a fire person? Were you a doctor? Were you a nurse? What did you do? And don't worry so much about the particular, but what were the values under it? That's your deepest desire. Did you see yourself as a great inventor? That would be a desire. Did you see yourself as a great healer? That would be a desire. Did you see yourself as a great innovator? That would be a desire. And while you're here for the next 4 years or 1 year or 2 years, or a few people who have already graduated and have come back, we don't understand those people. Soak in as much as you can. Fall in love as often as you can with life, with learning, with people. And don't you try to dictate life, but learn to dance with life. So that 19 years from today, if I bump into you and I say, Katie, how you doing as a nurse? And you tell me, you know what, I'm not a nurse anymore. I'm a librarian in the inner city, helping kids live and read. I'll say you did the dance. And if I run into you, what's your name?
Jack.
Jack? Well, isn't that lucky? I can't even screw up that one. J-A-C-K. There you go. Jack, if I run into you and you say, you know what, I just wanted to get out of school. I wanted to make a quick buck. I really never liked studying, but now, I'm a doctor. And I make lots of money, but every second Friday, I open my doors and see people for free. Today, Jack Butler has the best job in the universe. Because Jack Butler's a 47-year-old man that goes to bed and wakes up with 10,000 just shy undergrads and 5,000 grads who God believes in, who God is mobilizing, and God's going to change the world through you. And my new job is to inspire. My new job is to make sure the mission is carried through you. And my new job is to teach you to dance. Dance with a God of love who says, don't put me in a box and don't put yourself in a box, but let life lead you to your desire and to bigger things than you can dream of. I truly love being here. I truly love being with you. I'm proud of you. And for the kid who never wanted to work in a university, I go to bed each night, and before I go to sleep, I say, thank you, God, for giving me this job here with them.